Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the California Community Foundation and Chair of the 2013 Conference for Community Foundations, John Cabara.
Welcome to San Diego. It's great to see all of you. People said, hey, they're not going to show up this early in the morning. But welcome to the beautiful city of San Diego. And we're here really to think about what this conference is all about, to just take a brief moment, a respite, to contemplate why we're here. But I got to tell you something. One of the things I want you to think about is your ancestors and your families that have made incredible sacrifices for you to be here and have the luxury of thinking about what are we going to do with our time and our jobs and our lives. I think about my family. I think about Young Suk, my wife's mother, who escaped from North Korea and came to South Korea and came to this country as a Korean war bride at the age of 18. And she earned her bachelor's, her master's, and her PhD in anthropology. She barely spoke English and became a college professor, but died at the tender age of 49 before I could meet her. But her life is a testimony to perseverance and courage and the grit of the American dream. I think about my parents who live in Hawaii now, and they celebrated my father's 88th birthday last week. And they are the products of immigrants who had nothing when they came to this country and were taken in the World War II to Poston, Arizona, to be interned in concentration camps for 4.5 years. And they emerged out of that with a burning desire to make a greater contribution to this country and to have a better life for their families. So my life has been shaped dramatically by the stories, just as yours have, of my ancestors and my family. And I am grateful for the opportunity to serve my community. But I got to tell you, I grew up in a mixed marriage. I grew up in a dual hemisphere family. My mother's an artist, and it's right brain. Taught me about creativity. My dad actually only has a left brain. He was an accountant for 51 years. He was a typical classic Asian dad. Now, what does that mean? He's a man of very few words. You have to understand what he meant. You have to understand the multiplicity of connotations in what he did not say. I call it the Jedi parenting method. But he did say to me, as the oldest son in the family, I had to become a public person. That was one of the things he told me. Become a public person, John. Become a good speaker. Get connected in the community. Get associated with something larger than yourself, and you will be successful in this country. And he told me if I didn't do that, this is a true story, that I would have to go to a psychiatrist. But instead, I went to a community foundation. So we all have these great stories, but we live in a very fast-paced life where we forget these stories and our histories and our ancestors and the people that made sacrifices for us to be here today. We forget about our hearts and our minds and the needs in our community. We say things about our community foundations to make a better community, to grow philanthropy, to help others. I don't even know what that means. Those are like Rose Parade themes. We need to be a little bit more specific about what we want to do, because the words matter. I was in a Hollywood restaurant, and I was taking a donor out to lunch, and we ordered iced tea, and the waitress said, do you want passion or regular? I said regular, and he said passion, and he sipped his iced tea, and he said, I don't think I got passion, I think I got regular. We called the waitress over. This is one of those Hollywood restaurants where the people look like actresses and actors. And she came over and said, can I help you? And he said, well, he didn't get the passion iced tea. And she leaned in with a wry smile without missing a beat and said, didn't I serve it with passion? And he said, you did. That's another word. We've lost the meaning of passion. Passion comes from passio or pati. It means to suffer. And compassion means to suffer with others. We no longer suffer with others because we're so fast in our hyperspace lives. We've lost a sense of what passion is. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you a new phrase for the Community Foundation world. And it's my favorite quote. It is, we need to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Because we're way too comfortable. And the afflictions are great. While we sit here, our world, our nation, our communities suffer. And we've come here to San Diego to get the counsel and comfort of our colleagues. We've come here to get re-energized and reignited and reconnected to our purpose and to remember what compassion is. But I've learned about community foundations that it's about raisins. That life is about raisins. You know, it's about raising children, raising money, and raising hell. Because at community foundations, we have the greatest platform of all to make change and to pursue what we are passionate about. We've got to take advantage of that because our jobs are very difficult. We have impossible jobs. As James Baldwin said, and I paraphrase, it's the very least we can ask ourselves is to do the impossible. This world that we live in requires that we do the impossible. But how do we do our impossible jobs? We need to become more competent. We need to pursue professional development and get more skills and abilities and expertise. But I got to tell you, I don't know if that's enough to do impossible jobs. I don't know if it's enough to just be more competent. I think we have to think much bigger. My favorite quote from The Little Prince, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood and don't assign tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the immensity of the sea. We have to think bigger as it relates to our community foundation works. We have to make change. My middle daughter, Malia, she hates it when I tell this story, but she got a little extra DNA. She had a chance of getting to Stanford University. We went on a tour of Stanford, beautiful campus, amazing. She asked me during the tour, why are we here, Dad? I said, maybe you'll get in here, but I want you to see Stanford. We go into the room where they do the admission stuff, you know, and it's crazy because parents are crazy, I gotta just tell you. Parents are nuts. And I noticed on the left side of the room, there were huge human beings. I'm talking about 6'5", 300-pound human beings, parents and their kids. And on the right side of the room, there were nerdy, geeky, dorky parents and their nerdy, geeky, dorky kids. These are kids that were inventing things on the tour. I don't know what they were doing. Then there were the Asian immigrant families that sat in the back with their kids locked down to their side. And we started the admissions process, and the guy says, who's the admissions director there, says, hey, you have to have high grades and high scores. And of course, people's hands go up because they don't know what that means. And this Asian woman right next to me raised her hand and says, my son, he has 4.5 GPA and a perfect SAT score. He gets into Stanford, right? And he goes, well, congratulations. This kid is just cowering in the side. Congratulations, but last year, Stanford rejected 1,128 perfect scores. We do not accept people just because they have a perfect score. And so people were very dissatisfied with that answer. Hands go up, parents are going crazy. And he said, well, look, let me set you guys straight, because you guys are really messing up my presentation. I want to tell you who does not get into Stanford University, because I want to make it very clear who we do not accept. When we get these applications, we lop them off of the process immediately. We call them well-balanced students. We hate well-balanced students because you parents have made them. You've told them to take 2 years of trombone and 2 years of community service and 2 years of leadership and 2 years of this and 2 years of that. That's every single student that applies to Stanford University. We hate them, and we cut them out of the system. We only want well-lopsided students. Students that have passion that they have pursued on their own for 4 years. And all the big people go, yeah, what are you talking about? Yeah, that's what we do. And all the geeky, dorky, nerdy people are going, yeah, we got passion, what are you talking about? All the Asians are going, what? And this guy was in front of me with a little kind of baggy pants and a hat askew, and he didn't have a parent. And he raises his hand, he goes, excuse me, man, you're telling me I could get into Stanford on video games? And the admission director went into a 20-minute speech about game theory, about game framing, about the future of games, and how that was his path to Stanford University. I looked to my left, and all the Asian kids looked at their parents and goes, video games! We have to get passion and lopsidedness in that passion, because it is critical to the advancement of what we do. It is the element that makes the difference from the extraordinary to the average. Passion is what takes us and ignites us and animates us to make us do what we need to do to help other people, because we need every tool in the box. We need every advantage to lead our agendas. We need to galvanize our grantees and our donors and our boards and our staffs to more deeply, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually engage in the work we do. Because we need to reboot our passion, and we need to refuel our compassion. Because the greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving that mark. Because it's going to take change to do what we're talking about. It takes big change. You know, when the sculptor is trying to get the sculpture out of the granite, it takes a hammer and a chisel to make that beautiful. And I'm telling you, with complacency and apathy and resistance, sometimes we have to use a hammer and a chisel to get that passion out of the stone of complacency. And I have to remind myself all the time that I can go to the greatest passion library in the world, our community. Because when we go out in the community and we see things, and what happens is all that you touch, you change, and all that touches you changes you, if you allow it to do our impossible jobs. Because what's important is we have to think about the faces of need. We have to look into the faces of need. When you see kids, you see the future. When you see people that have overcome disabilities and are stronger for it, you are inspired. When you meet people that have overcome tragedy and they see a better world and want to have a solution, when you talk to the immigrant entrepreneurs who see a better life, when you see the veterans who come back who aren't whole anymore, but who see a big opportunity for them to contribute to society, we have to look in those faces. We have to look in those faces and see ourselves. We have to look in those faces and see the possibilities that our futures are tied together, that we are interconnected and linked to the goodness within us. We have to think about our ancestors and our families and the people that preceded us with all the good work that help us get to this place, because our destinies are tied to one another. We have to take the hammer and chisel out and get that passion out of the stone of complacency, because we have to go beyond we. We have to go beyond me to get to the strength and strengthen the we in what we do. We have to remind ourselves that we are foundations of the community, but we are also community foundations to help us connect to the good for the people that follow us. So how are we going to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable? We have a lot to be thankful for, but we have a lot to do. And ultimately, it is the passion within you, within each of us, that we have to activate to make this happen, to do our impossible jobs. Thank you for being here early in the morning. Thank you for bringing your passion. Thank you for what you're going to do for each other. And thank you for what we have to do and what we must do, because we have to serve with passion. Thank you very much. Just want to note that I did that in 2 minutes less than was allotted me. So let me shift gears, because we now are going to talk about the rest of the day and what's going on. We designed this conference, as was stated last night, with a real difference in mind, about trying to immerse us in diverse groups into a learning experience that would tie through the conference to engage us in conversations about what's really happening, what we really think about what's happening. And I think we've achieved that, at least the theory of it. We really want your feedback as you go out into the communities today. But to get this conference designed, I had the great honor of leading and chairing. But as they say, it takes a village. We had incredible leaders from the community, from the staff. And if you would just give the task force, the planning task force, and all the staff that helped us a round of applause for the work that we did and bring us to this point.